I'm Will Lytle here with Tigress Outriggers and Gear, and today we're with Scott McCracken. We're going to be adding the Tigress screwless 9-inch rod holders.
Generally, a boat will come with 4 rod holders, all in the back, typically none towards the front. And then the manufacturer, if you order the boat custom, will add them wherever you want them for a fee. And if not, then you have to do it yourself. This customer wanted to add some rod holders that look factory, and he had the flush mount rod holders with the screwless cap. But he also wants to add some rod holders that have drink holders built into them. The new Mate series rod holders with a built-in drink holder, so that his passengers that use this front sun lounge or the front seat or are kite fishing from the front will have a place to put their drinks and utilize it for fishing as well. Since there's existing rod holders, we're going to try to put them halfway in between so that it looks intentionally placed. There's also a lot of wires under here, so we're going through and either cutting zip ties or unscrewing the mounts so that they can at least sag down far enough that we don't hit them when we are drilling giant holes. I'm just laying out this side to match that side so that I can reach underneath and verify that none of the obstructions underneath are in my way from one side to the other. The customer is going to decide whether they're flying kites, whether they're just putting them in for rod storage after they clear the deck. Sometimes what dictates it is the interior wall of the gunnel where it comes down. Some boats don't allow you to put 30 degrees in here because it'll hit the back of this, which pushes you back to a 15 degree. Some boats don't give you this generous amount of room here and would only allow you to put a 15 or a vertical up here. Sometimes this is closed off and there's no access to the underside on a 2-piece boat, which would restrict your ability to get in there and put the back on there or to put the studs in the drink style rod holder. You would also, at that point, probably have to plumb it with these threaded fittings here that are welded in so that water didn't just flow in there. You could control where the water went. So you would put a barb fitting in there and then a hose off of that to let it drain. When you're fishing rod holders, obviously you don't want to take a chance on putting one in that's facing backward up here, like a trolling rod would be. So you need to face it out, and some people want it quartering back. Some people might want it straight out. Some people might want it slightly ahead if they're fishing kites off the front. So it's really the owner's choice at this point. So you just have the owner go by and say, okay, I want this one straight out here. And then I want this one this direction. You know, whatever direction it might be, you know, we're gonna have the owner put it there. That way, when we go around, it'll be the direction that they want it to be.
Yeah, we're going to go straight out this one for a bottom rod for 30. Gives the rod a better angle when your line's going straight into the water. And that's how all 4 of these that we're going to add are going to be. They're all targeted towards bottom, sideways drifting, so your rods have a better angle and degree to fight a fish when you're not standing next to the rod or something.
What I normally do is I'll take the 30-degree rod holder, and since this rod holder hole has to be drilled at the same angle as the cap of the rod holder, this hole needs to be started at the same angle. So what I'll normally do is I'll take the rod holder itself, put it next to it, just start my hole so the drill bit doesn't walk, and then tilt it to the angle of the rod holder. This way you can follow the angle of the rod holder, and your pilot hole is already starting at the angle that it needs to go. This is a 30-degree flush mount screwless rod holder, and this is how it gets installed. This large nut would come off. This shim gives you a flat surface to push against as the nut tightens up. The rod holder draws down, and then there's this spike that we will drill a hole for about right here that spike will drop down into. And what that does is, since this is completely round, it could tend to spin if there was no way to hold it fast in the direction where you want it. So this is going to be the most critical drill right here, this little spike right here, because if you're off a little bit, you could end up out here past the cover of the cap. Sometimes with a hole saw, it's nice to have a longer pilot bit if you're drilling holes at 30 degrees. So I'm going to start it a little straight. I can let my drill follow the arrow. And then to confirm my angle, I'll put this back up. Once you're about halfway through, you're pretty committed. So this is the gasket that comes with it, but I use it as a template because it's got this little notch cut out in it, which is where the spike goes down. So what we can do is we can center it on the hole that we've drilled. We can put our arrow in the notch and we can draw this circle right here because we know that this is where the spike is going to go. We're just going to drill our hole for the spike 1/4 inch at the same angle as the rod holder. So we want it to be at about 30 degrees because it's on the rod holder at the same angle. So it's going to have to drop down in at the same angle. And you may have to open that hole up a couple times. You may have to chase it around a little bit, but for the most part, that'll get you where you need to be. I prefer to put 5200 on the rod holder itself instead of on this opening, but whichever way you prefer to do it, it needs 5200 on here or 4200 as a sealer and a adhesive. Go all the way around, make sure you get a little in that hole. If it's on the rod holder, it just tends to be a little less messy on everything else. This is going to go up towards the angle that the rod holder is built. Once this is tightened, this will all pull down and you'll have a sealer around it also. So since we had to do so much adjustment on this hole based on what we saw versus what we ended up with, I would take the same gasket and I would mark what ended up being the center of the hole that we used. So instead of putting it in the center of this hole opening, you can see that it's favored a little bit towards the back. So now when we go do the next one, we'll put it on there and then we'll mark that as the line for our center. So that when we do this next time, we don't have to keep chasing it back and back. So when we make the new one, we'll make that our start point based on our hole. All right, this is just a pretty good rundown of the tools you're gonna need. I use a 1/4 inch drill bit. I use a long one, but this is to drill my pilot hole. Instead of trying to drill my pilot hole with the pilot bit on the hole saw, I'll pre-drill it 1/4 inch with this, and that gives the pilot bit something to follow. We're gonna use a 2-inch hole saw. I like to keep an ice pick type tool handy for pulling the plug out of the hole saw when you're done. Most hole saws are threaded on. You can always back these off if you don't put too much pressure on them. Pull the whole hole saw off, shove the plug out, and then put it back on again. Tape measure, nice sharp pencil. I keep a little pencil sharpener handy because the non-skid wears the pencil out pretty fast. This little screwdriver here is for pulling some of the tie wrap mounts off that we would have drilled through otherwise. The rod holder, obviously. These parts that come with the rod holder, the nut for the bottom, the shim for the angle, and then the tool that tightens this up is available from Mate Series.